The man on Route 666. Location: U.S. Route 491, New Mexico 2019, formerly known as Route 666, called by locals the Devil's Highway. Ryan Caldwell was 31 years old, a freelance photographer from Denver, Colorado. He had driven long distances alone dozens of times, coast to coast, road trips, solo camping expeditions, late-night desert drives looking for the perfect shot of the Milky Way. He was the kind of person who laughed at ghost stories and rolled his eyes at people who talked about haunted roads. He stopped laughing after October 11th, 2019. Ryan had been shooting landscapes in the Four Corners region for a week: Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. He had one last shoot planned near Shiprock, New Mexico, just off the stretch of highway that runs through the Navajo Nation. He had finished his shoot around 9:30 p.m. and packed his gear into his Jeep. The plan was simple: drive north on Route 491 back toward Cortez, Colorado, where his motel was. About a 90-minute drive through open desert highway. He had done it twice already that week in daylight. At night it would be different, but he wasn't worried. He left Shiprock at 9:47 p.m. For the first 30 minutes, everything was normal. The highway was completely empty, not a single car in either direction. The desert stretched endlessly on both sides, flat and dark. The stars above were extraordinary, billions of them visible in the complete absence of light pollution. Ryan had his windows cracked, the cool night desert air coming in, and a classic rock playlist going through the speakers. At around 10:20 p.m., approximately 30 miles north of Shiprock, he saw something on the road ahead. At first he thought it was an animal, a large one, maybe a deer stopped in the lane. He slowed down. His high beams were on, and as he got closer, he realized it was not an animal. It was a person. A man. Standing directly in the center of the northbound lane, not on the shoulder, not at the edge. Dead center of the lane, facing Ryan's vehicle, arms hanging at his sides. Ryan slowed to almost a complete stop about 40 feet away. His headlights hit the man fully. The man was wearing dark clothing, a long, dark coat that seemed wrong for the weather, which was still warm even at night. He was tall, very tall, and he was completely still, not moving his arms, not stepping aside, not raising a hand to shield his eyes from the headlights, just standing there, staring directly at Ryan's windshield. Ryan honked once, then twice. The man did not move. Ryan considered getting out and checking if the man was injured or in shock. He reached for his door handle, and then something stopped him. He could not explain what it was. Not a sound, not a sight, just a feeling. A cold, specific, deeply physical feeling in his chest, like a hand pressing inward, that told him very clearly not to open that door. He sat there for nearly 2 minutes. The man did not move once. Ryan made a decision. He pulled his Jeep slowly into the southbound lane to go around the man, giving him as wide a berth as possible. As he slowly drove past, he turned his head and looked directly at the man from about 8 feet away. The man's face was completely expressionless, not confused, not scared, not angry, empty. But his eyes, Ryan described them later as being wrong in a way he could not fully articulate. He said the best he could explain it was that the eyes looked like eyes drawn on a face rather than real eyes. The proportions correct, but the quality somehow deeply off, like looking at a photograph of a person rather than a person. As Ryan passed him and accelerated, he checked his rearview mirror. The man was gone. Not walking away. Not standing there, watching. Gone. The road behind was empty in both directions as far as his headlights reached. Ryan drove the remaining 60 miles to Cortez without stopping once. He drove 80 miles an hour the entire way. He did not turn the music back on. He did not open the windows. He sat rigid in his seat and watched the road ahead and the mirrors alternately for the entire rest of the drive. Back at his motel, he sat on the edge of the bed for a long time before he could sleep. In the morning, he drove to a local diner and mentioned the incident casually to the older Navajo woman who served him coffee. He described the man and the location. She set his coffee mug down slowly. She looked at him for a moment without speaking. Then she said quietly, "You did right not to stop, and you did right not to get out." He asked her what she meant. She shook her head once and said, "There are things on that road at night that have been there a long time. They stand in the road because they want you to stop. They need you to stop." He asked what happens to people who stop. She picked up his empty mug and walked back to the counter without answering. Ryan has not driven Route 491 since. He has not driven alone at night since. He still does landscape photography, but he shoots in daylight now and is always back inside somewhere with locked doors before the sun goes down. He has told this story many times since then. He says the part that stays with him most, the part that still wakes him up sometimes in the middle of the night, is not the figure in the road, or the empty eyes, or the instant disappearance. It is that feeling in his chest when he reached for the door handle, because he has never in his life felt a warning that clear and that physical. And he has spent a lot of quiet hours since that night, wondering what exactly it was that was warning him, and what exactly would have happened if he had not listened. The rest stop on I-70. Location: Interstate 70, Western Kansas. 2020. Melissa and Derek Torres were married, both 34, driving from St. Louis, Missouri to Denver, Colorado for Melissa's sister's wedding. It was a drive they had done several times before, about 14 hours total, usually broken up with a night in Kansas City. This time, because of delays leaving St. Louis, they decided to push through, drive through the night, and arrive in Denver by early morning. They left Kansas City at 11 p.m. Derek was driving. Melissa was in the passenger seat with a blanket and a pillow, half sleeping. The stretch of I-70 through western Kansas is one of the most isolated highway stretches in America. Dead flat. No towns for miles at a time. Almost no traffic after midnight. By 1 a.m., Melissa was fully asleep. Derek had his coffee in the cup holder and his podcast going. The highway was completely empty. He had not seen another vehicle in either direction for over 30 minutes. At around 1:30 a.m., he saw the sign for a rest stop, 2 miles ahead. He decided to pull in. He needed to use the bathroom and stretch his legs. The rest stop was small and old. A low concrete building with bathrooms, a few vending machines, a covered picnic area, and a large empty parking lot illuminated by 3 orange overhead lights, the kind that cast that sickly amber color that makes everything look like an old photograph. There were no other vehicles in the lot when Derek pulled in. He parked close to the bathrooms, left the car running with Melissa asleep inside, and went to use the restroom. He was inside for maybe 4 minutes. When he came back out and pushed the door open, he stopped. There was a woman standing next to his car, not at a vending machine, not walking past, standing directly next to the passenger side door, the side where Melissa was sleeping. The woman was in her 50s, heavy-set, wearing a floral blouse and jeans. She had no vehicle that Derek could see anywhere in the lot. She was just standing there, looking into the passenger window at Melissa sleeping. Derek walked toward her quickly and said, "Can I help you?" The woman looked up at him. Her expression was strange, not startled, not embarrassed, not apologetic. She looked at him with a kind of calm blankness and said, "Is she okay?" "She isn't moving." Derek said she was sleeping. The woman nodded slowly and said, "She looked so still. I got worried. Something about the explanation felt wrong, too simple, too practiced. The woman did not move away from the car as Derek approached. She stayed right where she was, only stepping back when Derek physically reached around her to get to his door. He unlocked the car, got in, and locked both doors immediately. He pulled out of the rest stop without looking back. About 2 miles down the road, he woke Melissa up. He told her what had happened. Melissa listened, and then was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Derek, I felt someone watching me while you were inside. It woke me up. I kept my eyes closed because I was scared." Derek's hands tightened on the wheel. He asked her how long she had felt it. She said, "The whole time you were in the bathroom. The whole time." Neither of them slept properly for the rest of the drive. They arrived in Denver at 5:40 a.m., let themselves into the hotel, and sat on the bed in their clothes for a while without speaking. Melissa later posted about the experience in a travel group online. Within 24 hours, she had received 14 responses from other people who described eerily similar experiences at rest stops on that same stretch of I-70. Always late at night. Always a lone individual with no visible vehicle. Always watching. In 2 of the responses, the person was described as standing near the vehicle of a solo female driver. In one response, a woman described stopping at the same rest stop in 2018. She said a woman matching the exact same description, floral blouse, heavyset, 50s, had knocked on her window while she sat in her car and asked her to come inside the bathroom with her because she was frightened of something in the dark. The woman had not gone inside. She had driven away immediately. She said the thing that troubled her most was not the woman's request. It was that, as she drove out of the parking lot, she checked her mirror, and the woman was still there, standing in the lot, watching her leave, and she was smiling. The car that followed me home. Location: Pacific Coast Highway, California, 2022. This story was told by a woman named Danielle Reeves, 26, a nurse from Los Angeles. She worked night shifts at a hospital in Santa Monica and often drove home alone along the Pacific Coast Highway in the early hours of the morning. She loved that drive. The ocean on one side, the cliffs on the other, almost no traffic, just the sound of waves and her headlights cutting through the dark. She had done it hundreds of times. Until the night of March 4th, 2022. She got off her shift at 2:15 a.m. and pulled out of the hospital parking structure just after 2:30. It was a clear night, cool, a half moon over the water. She got onto PCH heading north toward her apartment in Pacific Palisades, about a 20-minute drive. About 5 minutes into the drive, she noticed headlights appear behind her. She thought nothing of it. There was occasionally other traffic even at that hour. Another night shift worker, someone coming back from a late night, a delivery driver. She kept her speed steady at around 45 miles per hour and watched the ocean to her left. The headlights stayed exactly the same distance behind her. She noticed it because of the consistency. Most drivers on PCH will speed up or slow down slightly, pass if they're faster, hang back if they're slower. These headlights maintained the exact same distance behind her for 3 minutes, then 5 minutes, then 8. She slowed down slightly to see if they would pass. The headlights slowed at exactly the same rate. She sped up. The headlights sped up. Her stomach went cold. She told herself it was coincidence. Same turn ahead, same destination, nothing weird about it. She focused on the road and kept driving. She turned at the intersection she always turned at. The headlights turned with her. She turned again on her street. The headlights turned again. She did not pull into her building's parking garage. She had a specific, clear thought. If this person is following me, I am not going to show them where I live, and I am not going to be alone in an underground parking garage. She drove past her building and kept going. The headlights kept following. She called 911. The dispatcher told her to drive to the nearest police station and not to stop anywhere else. Danielle knew where the nearest station was, about 6 minutes away. She drove there. The headlights followed her all the way to the block where the station was, and then, when she pulled into the station's parking lot and stopped under the lights, she looked back. The car had stopped at the entrance to the parking lot. It sat there for a full 10 seconds with its headlights on, pointing at her. Then it reversed, turned, and drove away into the darkness. A police officer came out and took her statement. They noted the description of the vehicle she gave, a dark-colored, older model sedan, no plates visible, no identifying features, and put out a notification. The car was never identified. The officer offered to follow her home. She accepted. She moved her car into the parking garage with a police cruiser right behind her. The officer walked her to her apartment door and waited until she was inside with the deadbolt and chain both engaged. She changed her schedule the following week. She now finishes her shifts at different hours and never drives PCH alone after midnight. She also installed a dash cam front and rear, a doorbell camera, and a GPS tracker on her car. She posted her story on a women's safety forum 2 months later. In the comments, a woman responded and said she had experienced almost the exact same thing on PCH in 2020. Same stretch of highway, same late hour, a dark sedan that followed her for miles and disappeared only when she drove to a populated area with people around. No one knows if it was the same driver. Danielle says the thing that still bothers her most is not the following itself. It is that whoever was in that car, they knew when to stop. They knew where the police station was. They waited until that exact moment to turn away, which means they had enough presence of mind in that moment to make a calculated decision. And that kind of patient, calculated thinking is far more frightening than any moment of rage or impulse could ever be, because it means they had done it before, and they had learned from it. Drive safe, tell someone where you are going, and if something feels wrong, trust that feeling completely.